It's time to sit down and relax for the good, the bad, and the sequel Q&A with your host, Doug.
Hey there, Doug here. This week we have an amazing interview. I was lucky enough to chat with puppeteer and voiceover artist Bruce Lanoil. Bruce has worked on so many things that are huge parts of my childhood. We talked Space Invaders, Dinosaurs, Muppets, Jack Frost, Theodore Rex. He was on Family Feud as a puppet, Mo Frackle. And then, of course, Looney Tunes Back in Action, which is the next sequel, and so much more. Bruce was an awesome guy, and we packed a lot in the hour that he gave me. And then I felt at the end of that hour, we really did connect. It was definitely a special interview for me, and I know you're going to love it. Here is Bruce Lanoil. Awesome. How are you?
Good. Is this Doug?
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Well, this is awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time.
Well, sure. Why not? You get to talk about yourself. Who doesn't like to talk about themselves?
That is true. That is true. So, so where does your story begin? Where did you grow up?
Oh, where I grew up? Oh, it was 1960 Brooklyn.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Brooklyn Jewish Hospital. And I was born of Flatbush and Avenue D, way back when, basically, in the black and white era for you, I would think.
Yeah. I grew up in New Jersey, so not too far, but.
Oh, there you go. What exit?
What exit? Yeah. Off of the Turnpike, it's 10.
Oh, okay.
287, it's 4.
There you go. I was way out there. I was in Willingboro, New Jersey, near Cherry Hill. That's where I spent my grade school years. So my parents got out of Brooklyn, a small apartment, and they went to New Jersey, which was like going to the moon. And then, unbelievably, my dad got a job on the West Coast. So we went to Mars, and we went to California, land of fruits and nuts. Yeah.
That's a big change. You go from, living in a city to, basically like farmlands out there in like Pennsyltucky,
Exactly.
New Jersey, and then out to the West Coast. Where in California?
We ended up in San Fernando Valley in Woodland Hills.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, I got bar mitzvahed out there, and I thank my parents up and down for taking me to the West Coast and the edge of show business and all that possibility. I'm not sure it would have played out that way if I would have stayed East Coast, but so it goes.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Definitely. Interesting sidebar. It's really crazy. Willingboro, New Jersey, a small town right in the middle of the, like you said, bumfuck wherever. And the same town, growing up there for about 3 or 4 years overlapping, Bill Beretta and his brother Gene and his family were also there. We had the same family doctor. And so when we did Dinosaurs years later, he became my father and I became his daughter as Charlene Sinclair. We found out we lived in the same small town. I mean, it was just impossible. And we never ran into each other, but we might have been in the waiting room at one point or another because they were very close friends with my family doctor. So how about that for a small world?
That is a small world. And it's funny that you reminisce about it like you're talking about like, hey, I grew up here. It's like, no way, I grew up here. And then you piece everything together. So at what age did you know that where your career took? Like what influenced you to even pursue it?
Oh, it's funny because I'm opening a new chapter of being a teaching artist right now.
That's awesome.
Taking my puppeteering skills. Yeah, it's something I put off. My wife's been a teacher, and my sister-in-laws are teachers, and I thought I had really nothing to teach. I just wanted to, furiously do. That was kind of like my MO. Just keep moving, keep going to the next thing. But I got bitten by the bug. It was the teachers. It was really the teachers and the mentors all the way through my life that gave me, I guess, the juice and the directional arrow to where to go. When I grew up pretty obese. And so I was pretty isolated in New Jersey. There was only like a couple of Jewish kids and I was obese. And the bullying was no problem because I was pretty funny and I could get out of most situations. But it was the invisibility of being, person looking at you and then instantly deciding who you were. That kind of fueled me. And I was just, I was just storing myself for later on, hoping that I'd be able to break out of this and become, what I wanted to be. So anytime there was, theatrical things, certainly making my mother laugh, because I grew up on, Mad Magazine. I grew up on Jerry Lewis. I grew up on Looney Tunes. And everything that I grew up on, everything that was passionate to me, I ended up doing in my career. I read Dr. Seuss books and I loved them and all of that stuff. I ended up being the Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
I ended up being Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny, on screen for big stars. And it's surreal how my life, it just kind of mirrored itself. And I ended up in places that I dreamed and then I manifested. And I still don't know how that happened, but I know that anybody can do it if you set your mind to something. But from a fat kid from Jersey to all of my adventures, I couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah. So what was the first step that you did to start pursuing this? Did you get like a puppet for Christmas or?
The crazy thing about puppets is it wasn't my calling. I mean, when the Muppets were hot, I thought they're cool and they're interesting. But what called to me in high school, believe it or not, I come home for lunch. I watched Sesame Street. What Jim and Frank were doing those early days was so for adults, and it was so crackling, and it was so, I don't know, it had a messiness and it had a realism that I've never seen before. So the Sesame Street puppets caught my attention, but the Muppets were sort of like for everybody else. So I never really pursued puppeteering. I mean, I love Peanuts, and I made a Snoopy puppet in third grade out of paper mache. Didn't have a mouth, but it was pretty good. I had a pretty good eye, and I molded it, and I was very proud of it. And I think my sister broke it or something, but I broke her Barbie. So, tit for tat. Yeah. So basically, what happened in college, I saw an ad for a puppet school, and it was a hand, and it was a picture or a sketch of a hand, and it was Sid and Marty Krofft's puppet school.
Oh, those are the people to go to. If it's not Jim Henson, then
well, yeah, the psychedelic. What you got to be crazy, puppet stuff, yeah. That's right. So in college, puppet stuff fit perfectly. Anyway, I said, I love those guys. And I was in a group called Hot Lava Improvisation, and I was pretty pumped up, and I'm very physical. I love sports, and I thought, okay, this looks fun. I've never done it before. I never did lip sync before, so I went in cold. And there was about 500-600 people, because this was a big deal to a lot of people that Sid and Marty Krofft were rebooting, and I had a whole slew of TV shows. So I go in there, and it was a maze. It was in Sun Valley, and you went from station to station, and if you didn't cut it, you were shunted right out to the street. So I kept going through the maze, and I kept, I guess being okayed, and I got to the point where there were puppets, but there were no faces, and they just said, put on this puppet and do an improv. So it's like, I just said, what the hell? Okay. So I just said, well, I'm going to do something. I suddenly went to evangelical improv. I remember it was like, friends, please send me your face. I have no face. And I did this whole thing with with Reverend, I just launched into it. I didn't really care. And I didn't know that Tony Urbano, who became my mentor, and he's a master puppeteer and taught me so much, he was doing a tour with Oral Roberts, because they were going to do a TV show. And they just stopped at the station just to look in. And I was doing the evangelical satire. And Tony just turned white. He thought, oh, my God, the contract's going to go away. Oral looked at the whole thing, and he started to chuckle. So everything was fine. And they realized either I was a mad genius or I should be shunted to the street. But I stayed on, and there was 16 people chosen. And it started my pathway into puppeteering, which I thought, I'm an actor. I'll do this on the side. But it pretty much became my life.
So in between that, so looking at your IMDb, which isn't low, it's like 100%, but it has your first role was a TV movie, Poppies.
Oh, the Popples. Yeah, that came up after the training. But my first true role was Jimmy Fudge of the Fudge Family. And it was a beady-eyed little kid, and they'd stick me in a tree and put the puppet on my hand with a fishing rod. And Oral Roberts would come out of the bushes in a 3-piece suit. And I'd say to him things like, Mr. Roberts, why did my mother die? And he said, well, Jimmy, I'm glad you asked. And he'd go into an oration, usually around 20, 30 minutes. And this is my first job, and my hand is sticking out the tree, and I'm dying. I can't keep the rod straight. I've never puppeteered before in my life. And I said, is this what it's going to be like? And frankly, Yeah, that's how it's been. If you like being comfortable, if you like being, having your shit together, puppeteering isn't for you. Puppeteering is mad, and it's always different, and you have to always reinvent yourself and draw from what you did before and hope you can do what you're doing now. But it's been a mad, crazy journey. That was my first job.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So the Popples, I guess, was after that.
Yeah, the Popples was a side project. I think it was Greg Williams. I think he headed it up with Steve Sherman. Steve Sherman. And they had an operation, and then they had this contract for the Popples, and we had to do a rock star, and I played one of the Popples, and it didn't take. I must have done 1 million pilots on spec, 1 million pilots. I mean, you have to be a hopeful person. Thousands of pitch meetings. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. And so many of things don't. And you have to be an internal optimist to keep going in show business. And as far as a puppet show, selling a puppet show is hard. But maybe now with Dark Crystal and some of the things happening, hopefully green lights will happen for my friends' projects, because a lot of people have wonderful ideas. And puppets are a great way to tell a story, as you know.
Oh, definitely. No, I love puppets. So, so then we go fast forward again. There might be things that are in between, but this movie I loved growing up, and you were the voice of Pez in Space Invader.
Oh boy, yeah.
That is such a cool movie.
It was really cool. I mean, Patrick, it was his pet project, and it was such a passion thing. So picking the voices was a big deal for him. We're both Jerry Lewis fans, and he wanted something crazy, and I brought that crazy energy. And he ended up directing a couple of episodes on Dinosaurs as well.
Oh wow!
And
okay.
I think he's teaching in the East Coast now. But that was a blast. And I met Joe Alasky there before he passed recently. Wonderful guy. And I worked with Kevin Thompson again on Looney Tunes too. So it's a small thing. We've always just kind of woven through. You always see somebody again. So it's good to be nice to people because you never know when you're going to see them again.
I know. Yeah.
But doing that voiceover was great, and it led to other things like doing Timon and things like that. So it was a joy, and I wish I had more projects with Patrick because he was a great director.
Yeah, no, I just remember that movie. I was only like 4 at the time, but I remember my dad had like the illegal black box, and I don't even know what channel it was on, like HBO or Showtime or Cinemax. And I remember it would just be on all of, because back then it didn't seem like there's as many movies maybe, but they were just like
absolutely
all day long.
All right, you're not so young. Okay, good.
Yeah,
I like the black box. It was you thought the police was going to burst into your house at any moment because you had it.
I know. it was like the coolest thing to have. But so that same year, probably right around that time, I don't know when it filmed, but so you're on Perfect Strangers.
Yeah, that was really bizarre. My friend Wayne Katz made me a baby puppet, and I took it to Europe because I juggled with my friend Stephen Haves in the street. We were doing just street theater, and we were doing a equity waiver show in Pigalle, which is the red light district. So we're all the strippers and the ladies of the evening. Yeah. But we got great reviews, and then they said, he's like a young Jerry Lewis, which, well, in France, I guess that's it. You can't get any higher than that unless you're selling, baguettes in the street. But it was a great experience to do that. And I had this incredibly weird puppet. And I went on this audition, and they chose me and the puppet. And it's the funniest thing. I couldn't do my act during the show. So after hours, when they let the audience go, they filmed my bit because it was just an insert. So I had to wait all day, and I didn't have that feeling of the audience, but I did that little thing, and it was pretty fast and fun, but I still get residuals to this day. That and Golden Girls. I get $35, like I think for the rest of my life. I think it's running on a loop somewhere. There's a Golden Girls channel, believe it or not.
Well, yeah, that is still on. I'm sure all these channels, especially with internet channels and like on.
Nothing goes away. It's crazy.
Well, that's good for you.
It is good for me. I've been really lucky because, I earned a pension from Screen Actors Guild from all of these crazy jobs, all these misfires, all these movies that kind of didn't make it, but now are staples in people's lives, and it's just weird how I've interwoven with so many childhoods of people who've watched some of the stuff that was deeply flawed and disappointing, but actually was, something that was important to a lot of people. So it's just weird how you in show business can affect people and not actually know it, because if you're not doing live shows, you're not sure, But with all these cons and everything, it's so great people get to see their, what made them tick, and the people who did all this stuff and realize, did I do anything with my life? Can feel that. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Do you go to those?
No, because everything I've done is just misses, wanting to be, on the docket to have people sign, have a picture of me. I've been around everything. Yeah, it's really, really weird. Like my biggest movie role was Mr. Tinkles, when we did 2 movies of that character. But I got to do Mr. Tinkles, say for the press junkets. So I did like 80 interviews, in 2 days.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
the puppet was just killing. And it was just so much fun to do that, because it's nothing like having, that puppet there. It was very intimidating. And we had some really good interviews all over the place. But it's funny. A lot of the stuff I've done, and it comes inherent with puppet work, is you get voiced over by a celebrity. So I give a lot of, really intense, wonderful energy. And a lot of times the directors go, oh, I should have had you for the voice. But, show business being what it is, it's you coming to see somebody's voice, which seems silly to me. But, sometimes it's super silly. Like in Monkey Bone, John Turturro ended up being Monkey Bone's voice.
Yeah.
I never went to a cartoon show to see John Turturro, and he's brilliant. But, it's not a voice you look for. And it was just the way the studios were made, So I think because of that, maybe my voice and my characters haven't been solidified like the Muppet guys and like a lot of my friends, who've done horror movies. But that's okay. It's I still look back with joy.
No, definitely. So right around 94, is that the first time that you worked with the Muppets?
Yeah, it was the end of Dinosaurs. We were finishing up, and Brian said, want to come along? We're going to do this Ed Sullivan retrospective special. And this was not long after Jim passed. And it was one of the first things the guys gathered for. And I'll never forget the experience of, they got the scripts and they went into we were in the green room, and there was a real, I don't know, there was still sadness. There was still a gloom. And they started ripping the script apart, and Frank and Jerry and, Dave Goles and Steve and Bill and they started making each other laugh, and they started relaxing, and then it got crazy. And I remember laughing until I was crying, and I was there with Brian, and he was only 24, 25 because he just took over the company, and we were going to do some penguins and chickens, and it was Christmas, and we are going to do and so they started making the thing so funny. And I realized there was no better place in the world to be than with these geniuses. And they took themselves from the floor to the sky. And I understood what Muppets were all about. And I said, wow, I want more of that. And I've been lucky on and off since that time to be working with them to this day. And it's been one of the most amazing, honor-filled, beautiful rides that a person, an artist, a puppeteer could ever be on.
Oh yeah. No, I love all things Muppets. And my daughter, I'm going to mention her a little bit later, but no, we could jump to it now. But
how old's your daughter?
She's getting 9 months at end of September. So she's starting to really, thank you. And she loves Sesame Street. She loves the Muppets. But one thing that she really loves, and we'll touch on it now, is Sid the Science Kid.
Oh yeah. That's great. That's so great. So
it's funny from watching.
System,
So from watching Muppets all my life and knowing how they move, like the different, like the way Sweetums is a guy in a big suit, the way he moves. So we're watching Sid the Science Kid for the first time on like PBS Kids. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't look like it's like some kind of just animation. Like it looks different. And then I YouTube it, and it's so cool the way it's done. Yeah, that's done a lot more. And Brian pioneered the HDPS system. Which is motion capture. It's a real-time puppeteering partnered with real-time mocap performers in the space, and then it's captured all in camera.
and you can do minimal work to it. It's not, and it does the job of CG. It uses the CG shapes, and it's a wonderful way of having that feel of animatronics or puppets live. So obviously they've taken it to the umpteen level, and they've done some wonderful work with it. I had a chance to pioneer all this years ago when we first started. I did tons of demos. I actually did a demo for the Disney heads, you name it. We were just doing it for everybody to show the world what you can do, what puppeteers can do live. And it's a really fun way of doing what we do and capturing the essence and the excitement of the moment.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So you did a lot of. Now we'll go back to the Muppets. So you did a lot of work with the Muppets. For a lot of it says like additional Muppet performer and additional voices. What are some of the characters that you've played over the years?
Well, they really kept it to the core. They haven't added a lot of characters. The only big influx was Bill Beretta, and with Pepe and Bobo, he's brought such a freshness and such a personal touch to the Muppets. He fit beautifully, and there really has been no other additions except Peter Linz, but doing Walter, and there was an audition for Walter. I got to audition for that, but it was meant to be Peter's, and he's a perfect fit, with the ensemble. But there's been other smaller characters. I got to do Mo Frackle. It was that he came about for when we did the game show, which was Family Feud against the Dixie Chicks. Yeah, we did the real thing. We were under the table, and Louis Anderson was the host back then. And the Dixie Chicks kicked their ass. We couldn't get. It was, if you ever watched the whole thing, it's the funniest thing, because we got to the end, and then Bill usually had like the key answer, and then he went off. He just couldn't think of something, and we were like lunatics until we won the last game. So I don't know if we made any money for charity. We felt like crap. We were doing it live, and then I was a Frackle, and I had to pick a name, so I became Mo Frackle, and I made a backstory on the fly. And that was a character I got to do.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. Tons of chickens and tons of penguins. I've been in every character, because I have to be second for the guys, and you mirror their energies, and they can either loop it or and then in the reverse, because they do multiple characters, and you got to keep the scenes going. And that's been an honor and a privilege, but mostly it's right-handing for, I became a professional right hand for the Muppets, and it's been great. And when I had a chance to do other characters, I was like Lindy and Things That Go and Muppets on Wheels. Oh, if you could find those for your daughter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she would love those.
What are they called?
And Things That Go. So it's Things on Wheels, Muppets on Wheels, and Things That Go is the name of it, and hopefully they'll release it on DVD. It was really fun to do. We ran around all over the place. I was on a roller coaster. They put a fake arm on me. I went to up here in Magic Mountain. It was called the Goliath. I think it's gone now, but they put a monitor in the roller coaster. I had my puppet next to me in the first car, and a monitor down there. And I went on the roller coaster, I think 8 times, and it was about 90 degrees. And I lost it. I can tell everybody out there, don't watch TV on a roller coaster ever. It's just not a thing to do. I got seasick. My whole brain I was done for the day. But I did 8 takes, which I was really proud of.
I think I found it. It's on YouTube. I found it.
Perfect. So Billy took a pig puppet, and he went in one of those stunt planes, and they took a lipstick camera and they mounted it. And they started rolling. I don't know how he didn't lose it, but he was puppeteering in midair while he was doing flips. So we did everything, hot air balloons, trucks, everything. So that was a blast. And that was on one of the side projects.
That's cool.
And then
we'll watch that tomorrow when I have her.
Yeah. And then we did a sweet little thing on the lot at Disney called Disney Drive On. And I did a whole bunch of characters. It did a writer who was a monkey and an agent. I did, the 11th or 12th old man of Disney. They went into the vaults downstairs, and Walter met the last surviving artist that Walt kept down there for, I don't know why, probably because he was cheap labor, but, that was fun. So I got to, explore, and I met some of the great Disney icons during that thing as well. And, the celebrities and everything that's interwoven, and the places that I've gone with these puppets have blown my mind. It's been an absolute world adventure.
Yeah, even the people like the Muppets and Sesame Street have always had guest stars, but even the ones that me and my daughter watch sometimes during the day, like the people they have on there, it's like, oh my God, like they have so many people that just like want to, pop in. I'm sure they reach out to some people, but I could see it being the opposite. You grow up on this. It's kind of a big deal for some people to be on it.
Oh, it sure is. I mean, my kids grew up on all these sets. I have a picture. I was just looking back. Frank was doing Fozzie for my son. And,
cool.
Everything just melted away. And who has that opportunity, And I remember one day on Dinosaurs, my daughter was very fussy. And Kevin Clash said, "Here, let me hold her." And he put her on his shoulder and he started singing his Elmo. And her eyes opened up and then they closed and she fell asleep on his shoulder. I mean, how magical is that?
That's amazing. The only thing we get is like Sesame Place out in Pennsylvania. But
that's pretty great though.
Yeah, no, it is pretty cool. I can't wait to take her there. I'm pretty excited for that. So
how fun.
One thing that was a really good show a few years ago on ABC, and it stinks that it didn't last long, but the Muppets on ABC was a pretty cool show because it was like more kind of like what you mentioned before. It was like cater for that adult humor, and you have like the puppets, so it was pretty cool.
It was cool, and we had the best crew, and we had it all worked out, and it was just finding its legs. But it was that adult element.
Yeah,
you love the Muppets, and you love the Muppets for a reason because they are who they are, and they have a certain rhythm, and they have a certain buoyancy. And when you overlay things like the angst of the office, and you overlay things like relationships or adult relationships, it kind of freaked people out and threw them a little bit because it wasn't the Muppets that the parents remembered that they sat down with their family and watched the original show. Everybody's hoping for that feeling of you can watch this with everybody. And it just missed making just enough people to keep the show going. I think if it had a couple more shows or even that second season opportunity, we would have found our legs. But things move fast, especially at ABC, and they had another regime change. And because of all of the politics, it just sunk it. And it's a shame because we were doing, 3 camera shows. And when the camera's firing at all angles, you have to have your stuff together. There was a raised set, and we had the perfect setup. I mean, Bill Beretta made it so, everything was puppet friendly. But it was just the content and who was in charge of the funny. It didn't have enough time to settle. But, I think there'll be another show in the future, frankly. I really think so. And it's predicated on the fact of the Hollywood Bowl shows. We did the Hollywood Bowl and then we did the O2. And when we did the original Muppet Show, I'll never forget, standing there with the Swedish Chef, and there's Paul Williams next to me. And we're all singing Rainbow Connection. And the faces were just, everybody was like, it was like, I don't know, it was religious in the way where you feel good and cleansed and you feel hopeful and you feel unified. And my family was saying, little kids were looking at their parents saying, I see why you love this because this is great. And all of a sudden it all melted away because they were doing what they're supposed to do, which is entertain and be themselves. And I hope that's what it distills down to. And the world deserves it. And it's getting more and more complicated. So I hope your daughter has a Muppet show to grow up to. The Muppet Babies is lovely. I auditioned for that. I almost got Gonzo.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so there's something special about the Muppets and those characters that need to have its place in all these streamers. And I do hope they find a show that lasts for a very long time.
Is there a Muppet voice? So obviously you can do a Gonzo impression. Is there a favorite Muppet voice that you like, or like, I nail that?
Well, it's really not, it's not cool to do somebody else's voices.
That is true.
Even though some of the guys are doing somebody else's voices. It's an honor thing,
Yeah.
Of course we can all imitate each other. Of course, we have range and stuff. And there's been auditions for characters here and there. But when you get to like take pictures with people and you're I'm not saying I'm an animal. I mean, you got to do a little bit, there, not to be recorded, of course. But we all have it in us. I'm sure you have a character you do killer and you're going to do for your daughter when you read stories and things like that, which is like a joy of joy. And that's what's great about the characters is they're so easy to do, but then there are characters that are not so easy. I mean, Piggy's not so easy. Some people can nail it. It seems like everybody could do a Kermit, right?
No. Kermit, I do Cookie Monster. And it's funny, my wife laughs so hard because how bad it really is. But my daughter, her eyes just light up. She loves Cookie Monster and she loves Grover.
Oh,
she's a huge Grover fan.
So am I, and I mean, who's better than Grover? He's the most human being there ever walked the earth. I mean, you have to love Grover.
Yeah. He acts like an old man. Like in one of the episodes we watched a few weeks ago, he didn't want to say how old he was and he was acting like ancient. And you're like, aren't they kind of all around the same? Like, you don't know how old they are. Elmo's young and some of them are younger, but it's like so funny.
It is. Yeah. And the memory and the history they all have now, it's so important. And it's funny when the celebrities see the characters again, because they've been playing them so long, most of the guys, there's this revisiting, there's this reality. The Muppets live in real time. So when other artists come in and say, I'm going to rewrite Muppet history, I see the Muppets this way. The guys say, no, we're here. We're living it.
Oh, yeah.
We need to be now, because just like we want to breathe and eat and be in real time with you guys. It's not a memorabilia thing. It's not a thing of the past. They don't just live in the 70s and 80s. They do, of course, in reruns and in the movies, but they're really here, and you need to touch on that. You don't have to be political at all, but you do need to know that what's going on. They're doing devices now and then all of these things, and sometimes they're at the forefront of that. The Muppets are just an overlay of human beingness and inclusion, and then that couldn't be more pertinent than they should have a place, and they should be for your daughter and for daughters to come and sons.
Yeah. And what? I saw the other day that it was somewhere on some website. I don't know if it wasn't the Hollywood Reporter, but they were talking about that on Disney Plus, they were thinking about doing a Muppet series.
Yeah. They did some mini series, and they did some old fashioned vaudeville, wonderful stuff.
Oh, okay.
And that's what's gonna be streaming, and it's gonna be of joy. I promise you, your daughter's gonna light up and love the shows.
Sweet. Is that what you and Peter were just doing?
This happened a month ago, but a couple weeks ago, we did a national spot for a big tech company, and you'll see the results of that coming in this fall. That was
sweet.
also fun. Yeah, so the Muppets are valuable, but knowing what to do with them is tricky, because you have to know and love who they are, and everybody who wants to work with them does. But the modern world and what it was is just a tricky thing. But look, they brought back Dark Crystal, and it's gorgeous. And it was one of Jim's experiments that at the time was not a success. It wasn't embraced. It wasn't understood. It seems like everything Jim did is now, it works perfectly now.
Yeah.
He was so ahead of himself, him and Walt Disney they're so ahead of the curve that even though their visions were extraordinary, for the mainstream, people couldn't catch up, or they weren't there yet. It was for generations to come. So it's funny that what makes something last a long time? What makes something that has to be passed on to children? Usually comes from love, and that's what it's kept the Muppets alive. And when you love something like that, you want to share it, you want to see it again, and you want to revisit that feeling. So they're not done, and I think a lot of good things is yet to come. So I'm super hopeful. So are the guys, and it's an exciting time, and we'll see what happens. There's certainly plenty of room on all these streamers and stuff for content. My God, so bring it on, I think.
Yeah, and you said it best about Jim, like everything he did. I interviewed, so we've talked about a bunch of movies, and we've interviewed a bunch of people so far. And one guy I interviewed, he was like a special effects guy in the 80s, and he did some puppetry work. He worked on like Howard the Duck, and he actually worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, and the first two Jim worked on. So it was Jim Henson Studios. But for the third one, they wanted to like cut corners, so they tried to do it themselves. So even he kind of complained about it because he even said like nobody can do it the way they did. So if you watch the first two, you see the way Splinter looks. In the third one, it looks like it was something that could be in a mall, like in like Spencer Gifts that you could buy for a couple $100. It looked that bad.
Spencer Gifts, you are aging yourself. I love Spencer Gifts. Absolutely, it's so true. I mean, I did Pinocchio, and that puppet was gorgeous, you know. And the movie misfired a little bit. It was a beautiful puppet and a beautiful thing. We went to Prague for 16 weeks and shot, and it was amazing and hard and all those things, you know. And you do something like that, and then when the financials are calling and there's money to be made, you know, something doesn't need to be revived 2-3 times, but it's a no-brainer, and you might as well do it. But cutting corners with puppets, preparation is so crucial. The puppet making, the people involved, the puppeteers, the crew, everything, it's crafted and it's so delicately balanced that works and doesn't work. And you feel it and see it, you know, it's and the public knows, but sometimes the business doesn't, and they think they won't care. It doesn't matter. I just have to make this much money. But when it hurts the memory of the product and the characters that are so alive in people's minds, I tend to get, you know, frightened about sequels. You know, some can be great.
Oh, I know.
Sometimes, you know, you just have to know what you're dealing with, and you have to deal with care and love, not just rushing to get something to market in order to make some sort of amount of money. You know, some things need a little bit more thought and a little bit more craftsmanship. And I hope that the bar of puppeteering remains high. You know, everybody should learn how to do it if they love it, but they should apprentice and they should learn from people who have done it before. Of course, you could teach yourself, and I hope everybody keeps making puppets and will aspire and where the next Jim Henson may come from. It could be anybody, and it takes a lot of just a lot of commitment and a lot of heart. And it's not for everyone, but those who it is for, you know, I'm so happy that there's a venue and a way for everybody to put their art and their selves out there. And so more the merrier, I think.
Yeah, I think you said it best when it comes to sequel. That's why I started this project with my buddy Jamie that reached out to you. Was growing up, for some reason, my dad was a garbage man. So it was like the perfect New Jersey family.
No
my mom was a waitress. And so growing up, for some reason, like in the trash, people would throw stuff out that was perfectly fine instead of like having a garage sale or going to the, you know, or selling to somebody. So I remember we had a lot of movie sequels that we used to have on VHS. And that's why I kind of started this. And it's funny. So a few weeks ago, I chatted with William Sadler, who I don't know if you know who he is, but he was in like Bill and Ted. He played Death. He was in Shawshank. He was in Die Hard 2. So we started talking about sequels, and he like pondered it. And it was kind of like what you said. He was like, they're real tough. He goes, when I went into doing Die Hard 2, he was like, I love the first one. So he's like, I got to make sure it's better, because if not, and then we just talked about like different kind of sequels, because you're right. Like next week, the movie that we're covering next week is Roadhouse 2. Now, did you know that there was Roadhouse 2?
I heard rumors of it, and you know, I keep stumbling on it, and I go, I love this. I love what's going to happen. You know, it reminds me. I don't know if you remember Billy Jack and his movies.
Oh no!
And he was this vigilante, and it had a B movie feel, but you know, those just resonated in me because he was standing alone against villains. He was standing up, you know, to bullies, and it was that kind of like character that just crystallizes for me, and a lot of people. So Roadhouse 2, well, who's the lead? I mean, Swayze was perfect. I don't know how they're gonna, you know. Who do you want to?
Well, this is gonna come out after that, so this could be like, this isn't a spoiler, but it's this actor that was married to Christina Applegate, Jonathan Shrek. But anyway, so he wrote and directed it, but this is even better. He did this movie and he did 8mm 2, which is like a Nicolas Cage movie sequel. So he did 2 sequels to movies. They were like straight to, back then it was VHS.
Straight
So
straight to video.
Yeah. But yeah, so
something should be straight to video. Sometimes it's everything straight to everything we watch, and it's like, could you give me like a disclaimer before you tell me that? I like the fact that they were B movies. We go, I know what I'm getting myself into. And there's an art form to B movies. I love great B movies.
Oh yeah.
A farce about it, and there's a winking at the camera type of thing. I love that. When people can master that, I'm in. I can watch that all day.
No, you hit it right. And then just like, here's one sequel I just thought of the top of my head, but like Death Wish, the first Death Wish, he's avenging his family, what happened to his daughter and his wife. And then in the third one, he's taking on an entire street gang that looks like the Warriors with like his ex. So it's like funny the way and these movies get made. There was actually a 5th Death Wish, but anyways, but no, that's good that you brought up the sequel thing, because I like getting the like people's mindset on that. So just a few more questions. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Sure.
Let's talk some dinosaurs. So obviously there was Dinosaurs that you were in, which is another show. Obviously, while you're doing it, you're reading the script and knowing what's going on. But when you go back and watch that now, talk about how adult that was.
It was, and I had to get together with a lot of the guys recently. We were reminiscing. It's so crazy. And we were all aware. I mean, I was 30, and I hope by 30, I said, I hope I have a parking space somewhere. I hope I have a TV series, and I hope I have starting my family. That was my life plan, and I hit it. It all happened bang right at the same time.
Oh, wow.
We were aware how a peak experience this was. And it's funny because peak experiences are different for different people. For Dave Goles and Steve Whitmire, Fraggle Rock was their peak experience.
Oh yeah.
When they got to really stretch themselves as puppeteers and actors, Jim gave them, just free reign to, just explore. And that was an amazing, bonding experience. And it encompasses the entire crew and everything about the experience. All the writers from Dinosaurs went on to be all the showrunners for all the series you've ever watched since. We were so enamored with the writing and the arcing of what we were going to do, but we always would stop when The Simpsons were on. It was only like 3rd season, and watch their genius happen, because we were trying to emulate what they were doing in animation by satirizing everything. And we lampooned and had a chance to do 5 seasons, 2.5 years, being in your favorite job in the world. I was just talking to my wife. I realized that when we had my son, I took 2 days off because I couldn't miss any work, because it was so crucial. All the energy was needed, and I went right back. One other place would you do that? Leave your newborn. Of course, I didn't leave my newborn on the streets. I left it with my wife and the grandparents. Everything was fine. I'm not that kind of person. I wouldn't leave my child. But I had to get back to work because I loved it so much, and it was the most immersive. Everything I had as an actor, as a person. We even had a softball team. We always got beaten by coach and what else? Some other, crime show, but because they had these big, huge guys, these grips, so they had a lot of ringers. We only had a couple of them, but mostly I was the pitcher for some reason, so it was high arc, and but it was, everything about it. And I did about 60 voices on the show, so I went to ADR, and then I went back to the stage. And
what voices did you do on the show?
Oh, just it was a lot of hand puppets. So every episode, I think I had a voice, because we populated the show with a lot of dinosaurs, and more were built by the Creature Shop, because there was a Creature Shop located at CBS MTM. So whatever the script was, we would build something else. When Earl became Pearl, so the secondary head became Pearl, and she visited, things like that. But mostly I was Charlene, and I was a Unisaur. So my Unisaur voices, Ed was my Unisaur. I got to do a lot of the voices of the characters I played. So it was so great. And for a while I was in the suit. I was in one of the purple Unisaur, and in People magazine, I'll send it to you, the picture. There's me and Brian in a 2-page spread where Brian's
awesome.
looking at me and I'm in the Unisaur, and there was actually a shot of me in the Unisaur suit, and I was puppeteering on the rig because I had to do double duty. So I was a pig in slop. I mean, I was the happiest person I could ever be, because I was being utilized voice and body, and I found that I still have the greatest friends from there. It was the beginning of the most magical, giant, ride I've ever been on. Couldn't be more grateful. And I even bought a house from it because the show got syndicated.
Oh, that's awesome. So here's two points to what you said. One, so you said when you played coach, it was like all the grip. You weren't like striking out Craig T. Nelson, right?
I don't think Craig was there, but what's his name? The big blonde guy. I forgot his name. Of course, in SpongeBob, right? He's SpongeBob's sidekick. Yeah, he was there.
Yeah, Patrick. Oh, really?
Patrick, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he played. That was fun. I think Law and Order. That was the other show. Yeah, they kicked her. Oh, they killed us in the playoffs. We made the playoffs 2 years, but we got booted. We didn't have the firepower. we were just little scrawny puppeteers,
Yeah.
Scrappy.
Going back to what we talked about earlier, I'm surprised. I'm sure with these Comic Cons, if you look at some of the people that go to them and like these specific older movies, like some of these horror ones, I'm surprised that Dinosaurs, like meeting the people in the suits. I think that show could be like, especially with all the reboots today, I think that show could work today. It was so cool. It was so different.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but we were between seasons, last 2 seasons, we were going to do 6 weeks off and do a feature. Everything was planned, and we were going to kill it because we were so finely tuned. Misha Sisti and I, who was Michelangelo in the Turtles, as you know, he was in Cheryline, and we could do a show in 4 days because Misha was so good, and we saved Disney like I think $300,000 by not doing that 5th day. And so we did a couple of those shows last season to make the last season work and to make the budget. But we had a 6-week movie, and it was going to be like they got thought out, and then they went to a mall. We were going to be with people. I mean, the whole thing was going to be so cool. But I don't think Brian was going to direct it, but there was I don't know, somebody wasn't confident with that, or something happened where they just couldn't work out the details, and we missed our opportunity. So there would be a Dinosaurs movie floating around that would be like no other movie ever, but we didn't get to do it, and we were heartbroken. So I don't know if they can reinvent the show. They could probably do it with CG, but man, those suits walking around, you never saw anything like that in your life. People who came to the set never forgot it. Oh, it was amazing. Just amazing.
Was that done in front of a live studio audience?
No, we had guests, but because the whole stage was taken up. For the first year, we fogged up the stage. Could you imagine being in Earl, and then the air you breathe is full of smoke? So we tried to kill everyone. And we, some people have, lost years of their lives being in those suits. Bill, I just don't know how. And also he smoked, and I don't know how he did all those things, but Bill's sort of a superhero. They all were. They were just amazing actors who could, when the mouth is opening and closing, just know where to go and how to do prop work and do it, with 1 or 2 takes, because that's all you got. So it was an extraordinary experience, and really was never replicated. We did some animatronics later on, but CG came flying in, and in that 10-year period, we did movies, but it was replaced. But now it looks like with Star Wars and stuff, it's sort of coming back, and that just warms my heart, because Yoda's got to be seen.
Oh yeah,
CG Yoda didn't work for me. Oh my God!
Flips and
Yeah, the weight and the reality and the reactability. Yeah,
definitely. And then, so you mentioned that there was going to be a movie, which is like fascinating. I'm sure not a lot of people know that. And then right around that, like right after you did Dinosaurs, or probably right towards the end, so you were Theodore Rex.
Yeah. We came off of that and thought, oh, let's do this. And John Criswell created the Teddy Rex. Oh boy, here's the beginning of that movie. So, we get to set, and for some reason, everything's going wrong. But because of all that happened with the movie, I don't know if you know the history of it.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
You can't. Don't ask Whoopi Goldberg about it ever, because
I know it's crazy.
Oh God, yeah! It came out of a lawsuit. She just got her Oscar, and she said yes to this movie, and for some reason they wrangled her and sued her to make the movie. So she came in pretty angry, and I probably would have been too. And so she didn't want any shenanigans. It turns out our dinosaur just wasn't working on the first day of shooting. All I had was an eyebrow. So the producer just goes, I said, it's just not working. Maybe we have to call it a night. She says, no, you have to keep shooting. If we don't shoot tonight, the whole thing will implode and the entire movie will be shut down. So keep going. So I'm wiggling an eyebrow for all I'm worth, thinking, oh my God, this is the end of my career. And Whoopi looks right at camera and she said, is this, beep, beep thing going to work? And she's just yelling at me. And I said, I didn't know what to say, because it's nothing I could do. And I had a little, tiny dressing room, this stinky little dressing room. And I just curled up in a fetal ball saying, well, that's my career. That's my first and last feature film. But it turns out Whoopi things started working better, and she made the best of it. And she was one of the most, as you probably feel from her work and who she is, the most amazing, uplifting people you've ever met in your life. She took us all in and made this a great experience. She was so loving and kind and made the best of it. And it is so hard to watch that movie. It is so bad, and I don't know. And I was writing scripts with Jonathan, the director. And it was absurd. We started with a month of nights. And if you ever work nights, you shift your whole body.
It's the worst.
And we went to Griffith Park here in LA, and it was freezing for some reason. So it was like in the 40s, and we're shivering, and it's foggy, and it's nighttime, and we're trying to make this dinosaur work. And Pons Mars and the dinosaur, he had to lean over 90 degrees because the thing was hanging on his head because of the design of the character. And I don't know how his back didn't break. But we made this thing, and everybody, was on it for the big shots, and it was madness, and it wasn't the end. And I got to work with Whoopi a couple more times, and so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been a real blessing to have her weave through. She played God in Monkey Bone. She did a Muppets Tonight, if you remember. She did a guest star role, and she was so sweet to me. I wasn't allowed at the reading, and it was a little political. And she said, Bruce, and she gave me a big hug in front of Frank Oz, and Frank's mouth just dropped open. Because how do you know Whoopi? I said, we're co-stars. That's how I know Whoopi.
Theodore Rex, that Oscar snubbed movie.
We did a buddy movie together. I was, when you get to do stuff like that, that's what puppeteering has allowed me to do as an actor. I never would have had a career like this. I remember sitting, it was Jack Frost, and I was sitting with Michael Keaton and the director after hours, near the end of the filming, and Troy said, how do we end this movie? So the three of us are just pondering how to end the movie. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, how did I get here? How did I get to this moment? It's impossible, but because I'm portraying the character, and because I found myself in roles and places that I really could not have dreamed of. It's just absolutely crazy.
So one of the things with that movie, I know I've read some behind the scenes stuff on that. So it's originally going to be, were you already on the project when it was going to be for George Clooney?
Oh yeah. Cause of all the changes. No, and also I think was it Sam Mendes, was going to be our director. A lot of things changed, on that movie. That was a weird thing, but I think it was rumored, but we didn't know. And I think it ended up with Michael. But yeah, a lot of things are crazy. We didn't have the Creature Shop didn't secure the movie until we took a mock head of Frost, and we put it on a stick, and we took it into the executive lounge, and I started singing Christmas carols, and I had my back to them, and I was just riffing, I was just flying, the head was just beautiful, and it was moving well, and it closed the deal for us. And so Chris DeFaria, who was the vice president of Warner's at that time, really liked what we were doing, and he was our proponent. He was our proponent during Cats and Dogs and a lot of other things. So he knew that we could deliver and do the job. But, making a movie, it is so many compromises. It's so hard. There's so many things that can go wrong. And originally it could have been maybe something else, but it became what it was. And it still was an absolute blast and a crazy journey to be a part of it.
Yeah, and you got to hang out with Michael Keaton. I'm not saying George Clooney's not a nice guy, but Michael Keaton just seems like that guy you could like have a beer with, and he just seems like such a great guy. Yeah,
I mean, he's an amazing talent. But it's funny that he had his stuff to do in the beginning, and then he left the middle to us. He laid down his tracks, and then I had to program his voice into the puppet, and so I had to do that in the night times and then work in the daytimes filming. So when we were shooting out the Spruce Goose Dome, I was staying on the Queen Mary, which is a hotel, and I had the two heads in my hotel room, and I was programming their voices at night and then going to the set in the day. I did a month of that. So it's just, there's so much work that goes into what we do, and you have to be willing to just throw yourself into it because it's worth it. It's like movies are forever. You want to do your very best, and you can't control the outcome. But when you have the ball, you just got to do what you can with it. And I just loved every minute of it.
No, it definitely sounds like when you had the ball, you scored. When you look at your career and all this stuff.
Well, at least I shot a lot. I'm more like Kobe. I'll put the but I don't know if I'll be a Hall of Famer, but at least I'm in a helmet. At least have a shot at the rim. Well, I'm fine at passing the ball, but if I have to score, I'll score.
So this has been so awesome. And I know I just have to mention it because I know you mentioned a little bit before because you grew up loving the Looney Tunes and you were Looney Tunes back in action. And it's so cool. I don't know if you put that on YouTube or someone else, that puppet reel, just seeing the way that was working with you and Jenna Elfman and Brendan Fraser, the way it was shot is so neat.
So much fun. Dave Barkley made rubber maquettes. And so, I got for the first days at Warner Brothers, I had the Daffy maquette and I thought, I'm going to run around. Brendan was shooting some, B-roll with his camera. We were futzing around, and I saw like some, tour vans. And so I took the puppet and I hid in the bushes. And then as the van's coming around the corner, there's these little carts and stuff. I smashed Daffy against the glass, and I was just, Daffy was alive and he was running around the Warner Brothers lot like he was supposed to. And it was surreal being, just embodying those characters, and they did throw me Pepe Le Pew because I nailed the voice on the set. I never could do it back in the studio, but at that moment when Brendan comes up and this ring, is it not? It just came out of me, out of sense memory of loving them as kids. So I got to do the voice. So yeah, great to be a part of the history of the things we loved, to be in the tapestry. And it doesn't matter if I was, lauded or anything. I'm a part of it, being a part of something, of the history of what we love, just what we love, especially as kids. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like feeling that sense of belonging. And everybody should have that feeling of being a part of things that they love, And that's why I'm going, and that's why I want to teach, and I want to tell the young people who think they have no chance from where they are. They have every chance in the world. You may not become president, and that's not such a bad thing. But you can touch people's hearts, and that's so important. Your daughter and all the things you got to do together, and you telling her stories. That's what my kids remember the most. And I ended up, doing stories at their schools. And that if you have that joy in you and you could see them light up and you love doing it, that's being a part of the story. And no matter where you are in the story and what size of character, it doesn't matter. Being a part of the story and passing it on is what life's all about.
And I'm happy that you are teaching, because your story is definitely one to tell. And you know what? I'll be telling, my daughter is old enough to understand. I'll be telling her a story. I'll be showing her clips of you, and definitely playing this for her, because
That's so cool.
You've been so awesome.
Oh, my pleasure. And I hope there's a set to come to in LA if you're ever, there, and if there's a Muppet thing going on that you guys can visit, then that would be absolute.
Yeah, we have family out there. We lived in Portland, Oregon for a few years. So cruise out there, we had two puppies at the time. Now they're like big lab pit bull mixes, but we took them across the country, and I forgot what county. He lives right outside LA, my wife's uncle. But we took the dogs, and they were puppies, and they got to stand on the Lassie Hollywood Star. Fame.
Do you know I work with Lassie? Just the last story I did.
Really?
Yeah. I did the new Lassie, and I was a talking a baseball mitt or something crazy. They put me in a bed, and they drilled me in, and they forgot me, and they didn't. They all went to lunch, but I did a Lassie, and I remember Lassie just being whipped. It was like fifth generation trainer, and the dog just seemed just not really into it, and it made me sad, because I loved Lassie. Nothing made me cry more when Lassie was hurt. There was nothing worse than Lassie getting hurt.
Yeah.
But isn't that strange? I mean, another thing that as a kid I watched, and then I lived it.
Yeah.
So, tell your daughter, whatever she sees, it may just come true. So be careful what you show her. Daddy, I'm scared.
I know. Now I have to worry. But thanks, Bruce. It's been great.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
Awesome.
I wish you the best. So great you're doing this. And
it's been so much fun. And this is like a dream come true, because I love just the whole idea of just being able to tell a story and not have to be like people, because it's a great way to tell stories.
It is. And make puppets with your daughter, and put on shows, because who knows what's inside of her, and she'll be able to just express herself freely, and what a ball you'll have. So
yeah, if I'm out in LA, I'm going to hit you up.
Whoa, please. That would be wonderful.
Awesome. And then I'll send this to you down the road when it won't be too long, because I definitely want people to listen to this one, because this is so great.
Cool. Anytime. I got plenty more stories. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. Have a great night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bruce was the man. I'll definitely have him back again in the future to chat more about the stuff we didn't get to, or just ask some questions about the stuff we did chat about, other things I think of when I go and rewatch everything. But yeah, so I put his IMDb in the notes so you could check out all his work. So now your homework for next week is to go watch Looney Tunes Back in Action, which was a follow-up film to Space Jam. This movie has Jenna Elfman, Brendan Fraser, Steve Martin, plus a ton of other people. And then there's that video when I was chatting with Bruce that I mentioned. It's behind the scenes of him using that Daffy Duck bill. It's really cool. So I'll make sure to put it on his interview page. And that's at sequelsonly.com/Bruce Lanoil, Lanoil. And be sure to follow us on all social media at Sequels Only and our new website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.